Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Alexis. In this video I'm going to do like a recap of season 1 of The Umbrella Academy. I have been binge watching this show over and over and over again. I can't stop watching it for whatever reason. Well, I know there's several reasons, which I'll get into obviously. But yeah, I'm gonna be using my BH Carnival Pro palette again. I really like this palette, and I thought I could try and do something kind of inspired by the Umbrella Academy and kind of inspired by this look that I saw Katie Eve do. And I'll try and find the picture and I'll pop it up on my screen at this point, I guess, if I can find it. If not, it's this beautiful black and blue look, but I'm gonna do a black and white type look. Now there is not, well, there's one like matte white shade. It's almost like a bone color, so it's not quite white. So I might have to dip into another palette and try and find a good white for it. Yeah, if you want to hear me talk about season 1 of The Umbrella Academy and do my makeup, then keep watching. Okay, so first things first, we meet our characters. I've already did a little summary of the season previously. So basically what happens is there's this family of superheroes. They are all born on the same day at the same time to mothers who were previously not pregnant before this exact date and time. And so they're all born on the something of October in like 1988 or something like that. And also my eyebrows are really red because I just got done tweezing them. I haven't done them in probably weeks, if not longer. The last time I did my video was, or last time I filmed a video was the last time I did my eyebrows. So it's been a good couple weeks. And they were a mess. And I haven't been able to go and get them threaded because 1, we can't afford it, and 2, COVID. We find out that there's these superhuman kids, basically. They're all adopted. Well, 7 of them are adopted by this eccentric billionaire, Sir Reginald Hargraves. And we learn that he starts training them like they're in a military family. He runs them through drills. He runs them through, drills and stuff like that, and trains them. And he's not a very nice person. He ends up dying, and his kids end up coming back. One of them is literally on the moon doing research for his father, who has been there for 4 years. And I'm using Pillow Talk, by the way. I'll pop up the color on the screen. So Luther is number 1. He is on the moon. He's been doing research for 4 years for his father. And then we have number 2, who is Diego. He has the ability to make metal do what he wants. Not like Magneto, where Magneto can like manipulate metal, but he can manipulate knives. Knives are his thing. That's what he loves. And so we find out pretty early on that he can actually like make them move directions he wants them to go when he throws them. And so then we have number 3, who is Allison. She is a world famous actress. She finds out at a movie premiere or something like that her father has died. So we find this out along with the other children. And oh god, this is going to be hard to talk about while concentrating. Oh, this is the color Lights Out. It's the black in the palette. So we've got Allison, who is a world famous movie star and lives a very glamorous life, who we find out is getting divorced and having a custody battle with her ex-husband over their daughter. And we're not really sure why, but he has, at this point, we're not sure why, but he has managed to get custody and is being very, I would suppose what most people would say is very unreasonable regarding their daughter and visitations and stuff like that. So Allison's in the middle of a custody battle with her ex-husband. And so she's constantly talking about how much she misses her daughter Claire, and she's basically trying to repent for doing a really not nice thing, and I'll get into that in a minute. And so then we've got number 4, who is Klaus, who we meet in a rehab facility, who has his 30-day ticket, and everybody's telling him we'll see you soon, Klaus, because Klaus is obviously a regular customer of this facility. So then we have number 5, who has actually been missing for quite some time. His family starts talking about him. He can jump through time and manipulate time and space. And so he has actually was trying to prove his father, or tried to prove to his father, that he was prepared and ready to go into doing these things, to using this to go into the future and the past and manipulate stuff. So anyway, we run into number 6, who we find out actually died during a mission, and Reginald actually blames his kids for the fact that Ben has died. And we see that there's like a little shrine built up to him outside in the courtyard during the funeral scene, or the eulogy scene, or whatever you want to call it. And then we meet Vanya, who is a very accomplished violinist who is part of the city's orchestra, and she has grown up basically being told that she has no powers and is therefore not special. And so she's grown up really in a messed up situation. She's really down on herself and has like absolutely no self-esteem, and basically doesn't think very much of herself because she's been told her whole life that there's nothing special about her, which is heartbreaking to hear and just gut-wrenching. It's like a kick in the guts every time you have a flashback of her father saying, well, you're not very special, you're just ordinary. And so Vanya actually ends up writing a tell-all book about her experiences growing up in the Umbrella Academy and being extraordinary, which is not extraordinary, but extraordinary is the name of her book. And she kind of like blows open the lid of the Umbrella Academy and like the treatment that she faced, being just an ordinary kid when she has these literal superheroes as her family members. So then we find ourselves with this family, and they're all in their own ways like really fucked up. Like I said, with Klaus being a drug addict and an alcohol abuser, we've got one kid that's dead. We've got one that's been living on the moon, who we find out in later episodes actually had like no real mission to be on the moon. His dad, or, as far as we can tell at this point, the dad had no interest in Luther's actual research. And I'm saying that with quotation marks, with the research that Luther was doing. And so basically we find out that this guy has just been so terribly abusive to his kids, and that they grew up with literally a robot for a mother. And so then I'm going to try and duplicate this on the other eye, and I don't know if I can do it, but we're going to give it a go. So we find out that in the first episode that their father's monocle is missing. And his monocle was kind of like his signature piece. He never went anywhere without it. It's missing. And so Luther automatically goes into like detective mode and starts, questioning his brothers and sisters. Basically like, where were you when this happened? Have you seen his monocle? Have you seen his monocle? He's always with his monocle, trying to make this into some real big conspiracy theory type shit. And so we later find out that Diego actually stole his dad's monocle from his mother, who again is a robot. Diego didn't want his mother to be accused of killing their father because she had this monocle on her person. So we're assuming that Diego found out about the death first, but we're not really sure who did. But I would assume, given the writing, that Diego found out first. So anyway, they're having the funeral in the courtyard, and all of a sudden this huge, like, I don't even know what to call it, like vortex almost, opens up, and out pops their little brother 5, who looks no older than like 12. And he ends up like coming out of this vortex and then informs his family that he's been stuck in the future during an apocalypse. Well, he doesn't tell them straight away that there was an apocalypse, but that basically they had all died, and he found this glass eyeball, and he wants to find the owner of the eyeball. And he's very sketchy about what he actually tells his family that he did in all this time. And we've come to find out that he joined this group called the Commission. And the Commission basically are keepers of the time continuum. So they go to and from in the future and in the past, and they dispatch these assassins to kill people to stop like weird events happening, or like time-ending catastrophes from happening. So the Commission actually ends up dispatching 2 assassins called Hazel and Cha-Cha, and they've been commissioned to find number 5 and kill him. And so they end up like battling the family in their home and trying to find number 5. They end up finding a half-dressed, which I don't mind, half-dressed Klaus in his basically in his bath towel, dancing around the house while they're doing this battle with his family. He's just completely oblivious. He's got his headphones on. He's got his Walkman going. He ends up being kidnapped by Hazel and Cha-Cha. We don't really know much about the commission other than what 5 tells the family, which isn't much to start off with. And it's, I think, the reason why is because he doesn't want his family to know that he was a hitman for the commission, because he's kind of ashamed of what he did, which is, you know, in all fairness, if I was part of a elite, you know, faction or I don't even know what to call it, you know, I would be kind of like, I don't want to talk about this. This was some dark shit that I did, and I'm not proud of it, and I don't want to talk about it. So we find out that 5's been working for the commission, and basically they're the ones that kind of got him out of the apocalypse bit, and I don't know what to call it, the apocalypse timeline. 5 basically has kind of lost his marbles a bit, being like that he was alone by himself, and then we find out that he had a companion named Dolores, which we find out is actually a mannequin. She was like literally his companion through his time in the during the apocalypse, or after the apocalypse. So 5's a hot mess. He is obviously quite a bit older than his sisters and brothers, and so he all right, so that's my eyes done. Okay, they look almost the same. I'm trying really hard to make them look as, this one looks a little bit worse than that one, which is unfortunate because it's the first eye I did, but I'm gonna try and remedy that. It doesn't help that my eye shaped are 2 totally different shapes on either side, which is unfortunate for me, but it is the way that a lot of people's eyes work. So I've just taken a Q-tip and tried to get as much as that black off of my skin there as possible. Okay, that's looking much more even now. Okay, much more even. I'm happier with that. So, 5 we find out works for the commission. We find out Allison we find out that Allison rumored her daughter. We find out that Allison has rumored everything. This, what Allison's power is she says to somebody, I heard a rumor. And then whatever she says, the person does. So like in the first episode, we see, I heard a rumor that you shot your friend in the foot. And so the guy actually like turns and shoots his friend in the foot. Like you can't get out of it, basically. And so we find out that Allison later in the series, we find out that she's basically rumored herself to all the wealth and happiness and all that stuff that she's got in her life. She's basically rumored her way into Hollywood, into marriage. She rumored her own daughter, which is what actually prompted her husband to divorce her, because, you know, you're using your power on your kid, which ain't good. Then Hazel and Cha-Cha, like I said, attack the Umbrella Academy at their house, looking for number 5. And 5, we don't know his name. All the kids in the house or that were adopted have numbers. They were all assigned numbers, and their mother was the one that actually ended up giving them their names. And so, like, Diego has this very loving relationship with his mother. She's basically she was made by Reginald Hargraves to basically take care of the kids' emotional needs so that he didn't have to. And so, yeah, that's a whole thing. So Hazel and Cha-Cha have kidnapped Klaus, and they're beating the shit out of him, and Klaus is just being so Klaus and is like goading them and, you know, saying, you know, oh, I haven't felt this good since blah blah blah, and he's just so inappropriate, and it's just fucking beautiful. So when Klaus escapes from Cha-Cha and Hazel, he actually ends up with with their briefcase, which is the way that they travel back and forth through time. They have these briefcases, and they're just like these little portal opener kind of things. Like, they transport you immediately. And Klaus is on the bus and he's like, oh God, please be money, please be money. And it ends up just transporting him to the Vietnam War, essentially. And so he's, you know, all of a sudden just transported. He doesn't know what the fuck's happened. He has just ended up in, like, he hears bombs going off and gunshots and he doesn't know what's happening. And the drill sergeants, or the sergeant's like, get him in a uniform, get him out of it, you know. And so Klaus is, like, thrown into this whole thing and is, like, flipping out. We come to find out that he was a soldier in the Vietnam War, and that he ended up finding another soldier there, and they ended up falling in love. And we find out tragically that this soldier, Dave, actually ends up dying, and it fucks Klaus up, basically, even more than he is. And so Klaus eventually makes his way back after Dave has died, because he doesn't want to be basically in that timeline without his partner anymore. And so he uses the briefcase to come back. And he comes back and he's got shell shock, basically. He's really depressed. He is having flashbacks, the whole 9 yards that a lot of veterans go through. So he actually manages to come back, and he doesn't really tell anybody where he's been. He's just kind of dealing with this on his own, which is tragic. You know, he doesn't have the outlet to really talk to anybody but his brother Ben, because again, he can see dead people. I see dead people. He can see dead people, conjure dead people. And so his brother, the brother Ben that died, Ben actually is with Klaus and sees everything and knows what he's gone through. And so Ben is trying to help him as much as he can, but Klaus being Klaus, you know, he doesn't want help. He just wants to figure out a way to save Dave. And so, or doesn't want to live, like, without Dave. Like, Dave is the love of his life, he says. And so then we find out that, and I think this is in episode 2 or 3. I'm kind of jumping around based on each character, because I'm finding that's a little bit easier for my brain to process, because, you know. So then we find out that, so we get Klaus back, which is great. We find out that there's actually, like, this weird thing that has happened in the house. Klaus comes back. He's a fucking wreck. Diego is the only one that really knows what has happened, and that, you know, he lost the love of his life. They have this really sweet, touching moment together where they, like, kind of bond over this news. And then we find out what actually happened to Luther, that he was out on a mission. Oh, I already talked about that. Okay, anyway. Then Vanya finds out that her family's having this family meeting and they don't invite her to it. And so she gets really, really upset about it. And she's talking to this guy that she happened to meet, because she's also a violin teacher. This guy, Harold, or Leonard. And so she ends up getting really upset and is talking to Leonard about it as they're walking away from the Umbrella Academy. And all of a sudden we start seeing, like, lampposts bending, cars kind of moving. Basically, she starts exhibiting powers. And we only know that this guy that she started dating, who started out as a pupil, has actually stolen her medications, which we find out have been administered because her father didn't know how to handle her powers, because they were so big. So we find out that she's been taking this medication for anxiety that she didn't need, because her father basically said that this is what you need, basically, that you need this medication, and doctors have said that she needed medication and that sort of thing. So basically she's been lied to her whole life. And then we find out that the reason that she doesn't know that she has powers is because her father actually made Allison rumor her and say, you're completely ordinary. So we find out that that's what Allison's done. And Allison knows, and she's been hiding this secret from Vanya for, you know, their whole lives, basically. And so Leonard works out that it's the medication, because he finds Sir Reginald's diary basically on the kids and on Vanya, and he works out that he needs to get her to stop taking her anxiety medications because they're literally what's hindering her powers. And so we also find out that Leonard was born on the same day as the other kids from the Umbrella Academy, but his was a perfectly normal birth, but that his mother actually ended up dying and his dad was an abusive alcoholic. And then we find out that Leonard murders him and ends up in a mental institution for I don't remember how many years. But yeah, so that's a big mess. And Vanya ends up falling in love with this guy. And so he tries to get her to unlock her powers, basically. And, ooh, that is fierce looking. Ooh. So, yeah, this is totally fucked up, this relationship with Leonard. We later find out that he actually goes by another name, that he is manipulating Vanya. You know, at first he comes off as a little creepy, maybe a little awkward is more the right word, but that there's just something about him that doesn't sit right with Allison, and she can't work out why it is, but she just doesn't trust the guy. And she's basically like trying to be the good sister and help Vanya out and, you know, just looking out for her sister. And she ends up finding out all this information about Leonard. Then Leonard makes the terrible mistake of pushing Vanya too far after Vanya has attacked, basically, after she finds out about these powers and she finds out that Allison rumored her. She basically uses her power unintentionally and slits Allison's throat. And so she's, you know, as soon as Leonard comes back from whatever errand he was on, he finds Allison on the ground bleeding out, and he like steals Vanya away, and they end up going back to his house. And homeboy pushes it too far. He starts verbally abusing Vanya. You can tell straight off this is like a very manipulative type of relationship, and that Leonard is not the nicest person. You first, like, you see him and you're like, oh, he's awkward and cute. It's fine. But then, like, you realize this guy is not a nice person, like, at all. So anyway, Leonard ends up dying because he pushes Vanya too far, and she ends up losing the plot and killing him in a horrific fashion. So Allison, after this happens, the family actually finds Harold's house. His name is actually Harold, not Leonard. They go back to Harold's house and they find all this information. They see all these horrible things at this dude's house, and they end up finding Allison, who's not dead. So that's really cool. So, because I really like Allison. She's fucked up in a weird way, but I do like her character. So we find out that Allison is not dead, that Vanya did not kill her, but Leonard is continuing to make her think that she did, and she's kind of going through her own PTSD moment where she's like, you know, reliving what happened. She's hearing her sister's voice in her head. She's beside herself, and Harold's basically, you know, going, you know, it wasn't your fault, you didn't know, you know, but you killed your sister. Like, he's being really manipulative towards her. Vanya actually has her first concert as the first chair in her orchestra, which she actually got because she was using her powers, but she unknowingly used her powers on her orchestra conductor guy and the other people in the company that were kind of like auditioning her, basically. And so the reason she was third chair and got first chair is because Harold ended up killing the woman that was in the first chair, so that Vanya could have all of her dreams, basically. Vanya didn't know this, and I don't recall if it's ever even brought up in the show that Harold did this and told Vanya about it. I think he might have at the end. But anyway, so this all kind of culminates with the fact that Vanya has lost the plot. It's official. She's like gone crazy. She ends up being locked up by her family in the vault where she was basically left to rot by her father after he, you know, decided that he couldn't handle her power anymore. And so she's put back into this cage and she's freaking out, naturally freaking out. And so she ends up blowing the door off the hinges and escaping. and going to her concert that she's debuting in, I guess, and or debuting as first chair. And so Vanya escapes from the house and ends up going to her concert anyway. And she doesn't know that, or she finds out that Allison's actually okay. But we find out that Allison, like, her vocal cords were almost severed, so she can't really talk. It just kind of needs to heal on its own. And so, you know, now Allison is without her power. She can't speak, so she can't rumor anybody. So this all culminates in Vanya going to her first performance as the lead violinist. And so the family meet up at the orchestra, or at the, what do you call that place? Like an opera house, theater, there we go. They end up going to the theater, and they find Vanya, and Vanya has, like, completely unlocked her powers now. And she's, like, a force to be reckoned with. And so the family finds out that she's got these powers through, you know, what happened with Allison. And then, of course, the blowing off the doors and stuff like that. So I'm not going in chronological order, so I'm really fucked up. I'm fucking this up, so I'm really sorry. I hope you can follow along. So, anyway, final scene of the first series. They are at the theater. Vanya is playing beautifully. She's, like, hypnotizing the whole audience with her music and stuff like that. And she starts playing, and more of her emotions are coming out. They're spilling into the crowd, that sort of thing. Well, the commission decides to hire a bunch of these military-like personnel to come in and kill Vanya, kill Five, and kill the rest of the Umbrella Academy. So all these assassins are sent, and the family starts fighting them the best that they can. They're basically, you know, literally outgunned at this point. And so the family's hunkering down. Well, all of a sudden, Klaus figures out that he and Ben can kind of, like, mesh, and Klaus can not only summon the dead, but kind of, like, let them come across. And so Ben comes out and starts tentacling all these mercenaries, and ends up killing a bunch of them. And then Vanya ends up seeing this, and she basically, like, clears the whole room by this huge burst of power out of her chest. And so then we start to see the family try and take on Vanya and get her to, like, calm down, kind of like talk her down in a way, like talk her off of a ledge type thing. And Vanya ends up grasping Five, Diego, Luther, and Klaus with this, like, I don't know if she's, like, literally sucking the life out of them or what, but she has them, and they're being drained of, like, all their energy, essentially. And it looks like she's, like, sucking the life out of them. And Allison comes up behind her, who still has no voice, who's literally, like, 24 hours out of having Vanya attack her. And she takes this gun, and she's behind Vanya. And then you see her kind of rethink what's happening. And she takes the gun, and she shoots it next to Vanya's head. Now, the interesting thing about Vanya's power is that it's based off of, like, sound waves and that sort of thing. So you've got her focusing on one thing, which is, like, keeping her family at bay, which she's not really controlling very well, because these are brand new powers to her. She doesn't know what she's doing with them. She doesn't know how to use them. And so Vanya's got her family basically, like, in the air. And then Allison comes up behind her, ready to shoot her, to stop her from killing the family, basically. And then at the last second, she moves it to Vanya's ear and fires the gun. And so, can you imagine? You've got this brand new power. It's uncontrolled. You're very new to the whole thing. You're not in the right headspace. You've kind of gone a little crazy. And, you know, because there's a lot of death around her all of a sudden. And it's you know, pretty impactful. And so, while she shoots the gun next to her ear, well, this makes Vanya kind of, like, snap out of it a little bit. But this huge pulse, like this beam, comes flying out of her chest, and flies up and hits the moon. At which point, Vanya collapses and drops, like, once that happens, her family members, like, fall out of the air. So the family lands back on the ground safely. By the way, I finished my face. I couldn't talk and do my lip at the same time, so I was like, fuck it, I'll just move on and we'll come back to the end of it. And so Vanya ends up dropping the rest of the family, and so then the family kind of huddles, and then Klaus turns around because he notices that there's, like, something happening to the moon, and we see this massive chunk come out of the moon. Like, the moon just kind of implodes on itself, and this huge chunk of moon rock is flying, or moon essentially is flying and hurtling towards the earth. And so Five does the only thing he can think to do, and he opens a portal and tries to jump everybody out of the situation. And so they all end up, like, getting out of the world that they live, the timeline that they're in, that has literally just been decimated because Vanya's the bomb and she will always be the bomb. And so they end up in this portal, and that's what happens. That's the end of first season. So fucking good. Oh my god. It took me a little while to get into it. Like I said in my first video, it did take me a little while to get into it just because there weren't any characters that I just kind of gravitated towards or really, really wanted to see past their flaws. And so I really need a white liner, I think, on my lash line. And so I actually really, really ended up loving this show. Again, like I said, I've continued to watch it. I've seen it probably 3 times or 4 times already because I just have it on, like, while I'm doing stuff. I have it on in the background. I just really love it. And I pick up on things that I didn't know. Oh, that is very white. Oh shit. That is not what I was expecting. It's a jumbo eye pencil. What the hell was I expecting? I now need to put mascara on my bottom lash line because this looks cartoonish, but it's kind of cool. So this whole family dynamic is just really broken from the beginning. There's a bit of interesting love triangles in this show. We find out that Luther and Allison have had this relationship with each other where they were very close and they are very much in love with each other. But they grew up together like they're brother and sister, so it's kind of weird. If you watch any of the panels with Emmy and Tom, you'll hear people say it's incest, it's nasty, stop doing that. And they're like, we didn't write the show. They're like, we're just the actors, we didn't write the show. And so they're really, like, they know that the audience thinks it's creepy, this little love connection that they have. You know, the characters of Cha-Cha and Hazel are just so great. The fighting choreography in this show is stellar. The music selection, oh my god. The music selection that they have playing in certain scenes is just, it gets me. I am a huge lover of music, love music. And so when you get to hear these songs and they're just so perfect, so perfectly timed, so perfectly chosen, it's just perfection to me. I really, really, really am super in love with this show. You know, Klaus, he's like the little brother that is constantly in trouble, and you just want to just wrap in the biggest hug because you know he's hurting, but you know that he knows he's hurting himself, but he doesn't know how to stop. And he's so damaged. And then Five is just this really snotty old man trapped in this kid's body, and you know, it's funny to watch him interact with his brothers and sisters. And just be, you know, they call him old man and stuff like that. So it's really funny. Diego, bless his soul. Like, I don't think I like Diego very much, but at the same time, like, he was number 2 and he always had to play to Luther's number 1. And so he always kind of saw Luther as dad's favorite. And so he's overcompensating a lot for his insecurities about being number 2. Allison, you find out, has literally gotten everything that she has in her life because she's rumored it. She hasn't really worked for it. And you can see the guilt that she has as far as that's concerned. The interweaving timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey, if you've watched Doctor Who, you know what I'm talking about, shenanigans that happen, are just, they're really fun. Kate Welsh is so fucking good. The costuming in this series is just stellar. Absolutely stellar. She looks impeccable as the Handler. She comes in like I want to say to the first third, maybe the second third of the series of the first season, and her as the Handler, she's just so delectably, oh, I don't even know what the right word is, delectably devious, that I just, oh, and her outfit she gets to wear, she looks so gorgeous and glamorous, and the makeup, my God, the makeup, so good. So anyways, that's the end of the video. This is my Umbrella Academy inspired look, and again, this is, you know, kind of a play on another Katie Eve look. And so if you like this video, or you like the Umbrella Academy, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know every time I upload a new video, and I will see you soon, hopefully sooner rather than later. I've been dealing with a lot of stuff in my personal life, and my pain has been out of control, and yeah, I've just been kind of in a bit of a funk, a little bit of a depression, but hopefully I'm on the other side of that now. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.